Welcome to Adventures in Photography. My name is Stanley Earl Conrad. This series of tutorials in Photoshop will demonstrate how to make good photographs into great photographs. This tutorial demonstrates double processing, which is a process for recovering light areas from overexposure when the brightness range of the image is too large for the camera to handle with one exposure. This is usually where HDR shooting methods would be used, but for subjects that move quickly and frequently, normal HDR techniques and tripods will not work. This process works when shooting in the RAW format because the 16-bit files allow a much greater amount of data for editing than do 8-bit JPEG files. 16-bit RAW files provide 65,536 levels each of blue, green, and red light per pixel. JPEG files provide 256 levels each of blue, green, and red light per pixel. A pixel is an abbreviation for picture element. An issue when shooting 16-bit RAW files is their much larger file size. If file size is a concern, convert the 16-bit files to 8-bit when they are finalized and ready for printing. Just know that you can't convert back to 16 bits from 8 bits. The best way to tell if your image will benefit from this technique is to give it a brief test in Camera Raw. Open an image where the light parts are somewhat overexposed. Move the exposure slider to the right to have the subject a little bit better exposed, something like that. Now you'll notice that the whites are thoroughly burnt out. Although the recovery slider can work for things like clouds and whatnot, the overall effect of it here is not good. Now we'll move the exposure slider to the left and see if we can recover the whites while ignoring anything else. They are recoverable. To start the process, I've made some adjustments to the image here where I want the subject to be correctly exposed. I set the exposure up a bit, raised up contrast a little bit, changed the blacks, and changed the clarity. The butterfly and the surrounding background looks pretty good, yet the whites are still not good. Notice the Open Image button at the bottom of the screen here. Hold down the Shift key and it changes to Open Object. Click on that. Now go up to the Layers palette, right-click in the blue area here, and come down to New Smart Object via Copy. Now double-click on the Copies icon and it sends that one back to Camera Raw for editing of the whites. The first thing we're going to do here is return the settings to their defaults. Double-clicking on Clarity will return it. Now let's reduce the exposure until the flower starts looking pretty good. But let's go ahead and raise up its size so we can see what we're doing. There. Now, the exposure looks pretty good. Let's give it a little bit more brightness. Let's give it a little bit of clarity to bring up the mid-tone contrast, and that looks pretty good. You still have some specular highlights in here, but that's okay. Now click the OK button, and that's it for now. Now open up the Layers palette, holding down the Alt key and click down here on the mask icon, which is the third one from the left. This will put a black mask over your highlight adjusted layer. What we're looking at here is a correctly exposed subject and a correctly exposed background, yet the whites are still burnt out. This is because the black mask is preventing any of the white corrections we made from showing through. In a moment we'll take a brush and fix that. Go over to the Tool palette and grab a brush. Make it a soft brush and set the opacity to about 25%. Hit your D key to make sure that you have white and black as the foreground and background colors, and then hit the X key to toggle and make sure you have white set to the foreground color. Now let's make this image a little bit bigger so we can see what we're doing here. Alright, I'm going to start painting in or painting out the white actually, and since it's 25%, you can just build it up like this till they're pretty much acceptable. You can change your brush size and get down in here and get this one better. And particularly right here in the butterfly's white area here, we can bring some detail back in here. We can also bring a little bit back here, a little bit here, and a little bit through here, and maybe a little bit through here, and that should take care of it. If you make a mistake and paint over an area where you don't want it to be reduced, you can simply hit the X key and toggle it to the black brush and paint it right back out. It acts like an eraser. This is the finished version that has corrected the brightness range problem. Now to finalize the image, I'm going to go up here to the Layers palette and show you what I've done. I've darkened the butterfly. I have changed the saturation in the background to make it not quite so glary. I've sharpened the butterfly. I've sharpened the flower. There is your finished image, and let's make it a little bit bigger and a little bit nicer. There it is.